Welcome to the Racquet Rundown podcast. We are at the very tail end of the tournament. Final Sunday is upon us, and what a matchup we have. Jannik Sinner versus Daniil Medvedev. If I told you that this was the final before the tournament had started, what would you guys say?
Ludicrous. Well, I mean, personally, I would, I wouldn't rule out the Sinner. I would be more surprised by Medvedev being here, but again, for the second straight major, clearly we've underestimated, the guy who has established himself as, just behind Novak Djokovic over the last 4 or 5 years, the best hardcore player in the world, and we keep doing so. So, for the second time, he's into second time in his career, he's made the 2 hardcourt slam finals back to back. So, this time in even grittier fashion than he did at the U.S. Open when he just peaked. But this one more so a testament to his resilience, his just brutal physicality, and obviously his mental toughness and tactical adaptability.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the fact that Medi was able to come back from 2 sets down on Zverev and the way he's grinded it out, if he at the end of this tournament, if he wins that's easily the most time spent on court. I think he would eclipse Carlos Alcaraz. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, assuming the finals as grindy a match, as tight a match as most people expect, you would definitely think so. Especially if Medvedev were to pull it out. Yeah.
So what do you think? Sinner now red hot. You'd probably have to peg him as the favorite, right? Going into this match.
He is.
I think. I think you would just off. He's dropped 1 set all tournament where Medvedev's had, every match has been a battle, as Akil's mentioned, other than the Felix one. The manner in which he beat down a Novak that was clearly not 100%, but still nonetheless, beating the best Australian Open player of all time in 4 sets. Should have been straight sets, kind of choked away the 3rd set tiebreak, a little tense, but that was the only miscues really for the whole match from him. But the way fresher player, and if you look at the head-to-head right now between Medvedev and Sinner, Jannik's won the last 3 matches, all on hard courts, and in Beijing and Vienna, both finals, and then at the semis of the ATP finals. So he's figured out that matchup that initially Daniil had won the first 6 times. He's figured that out. He's really matured his game. He's returning as good as anyone else on the tour, not named Novak. Moving side to side tremendously, and really working on constructing the points and working the rallies to set up the winners really nicely. So I think Jannik's a favorite, but I would understand if people pegged Medvedev the favorite, given he's actually already come through before in a hard court slam final. So
yeah, I think a lot of people are, you have to put Sinner as the favorite, across the board pretty much. I think everybody understands the reasons why, form advantage, and obviously the more easy route as far as just how difficult his matches have been. Obviously a credit to how well Sinner's been playing versus Medvedev. Yeah, as Ryan mentioned, only easy match he's gone through is Felix, but there's some the X factor things there. I think are obviously the experience difference, which you can't simulate the nerves of a first Grand Slam final. I'm sure that's going to creep in at some point, as level-headed and ice cold the Sinner's been all all tournament long and throughout the course of this like winning run since the fall. But I do think that experience edge, we'll see how much of an equalizer it is, and of course, if you didn't notice throughout the course of this tournament, Medvedev, his lungs as strong as anybody else on tour right now. What is it? He's gone through 3 5-setters on the way here, 2 of them from 2 sets down. And yeah, not an easy match in there, other than Felix, who was just pretty much donated that match to Daniil.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is I'm looking at some of the lines here, and it seems like, a lot of people are probably expecting this match to be like not a 5-setter. Like, I mean, I think that this match should, at the very minimum, be a very tight 4-setter or a 5-set matchup. I understand that like everyone's probably got the feeling that Medvedev's going to tire out. How much do you think physicality and the hours spent on court are going to weigh into, him going into Sunday?
Well, I actually am not that worried about him. I've seen, even when he is tired, Medvedev does it ever since, literally that was a signature of his winning run when he first broke through in 2019 throughout the US Open that year, after his, tremendous summer, going deep, winning titles everywhere throughout that North American hardcourt swing. He looked visibly tired throughout, but I think people really underrate how adaptable Medvedev is. It's when he's tired that you see him go to, all these plan C's, plan B's, and he executes them most of the time. Most of the time when people are tiring and, they have to switch up the tactics, it's for, obviously that's not their that's not plan A for them, because it's just they're not as comfortable doing that. But typically when Medvedev goes outside his comfort zone, he tends to execute. And I remember that throughout that tournament, he was coming, some of the same stuff you're seeing this tournament. He started coming in more. He came in more than Nadal in that 2019 US Open final. I think he came in like 70 times or something, and he executed, I think, at near 70%. And the same type of deal here against Zverev. He, after the first 2 sets, kind of ditched his, he recognized that he didn't have enough in the tank to wear Zverev down and just play back from the baseline. So he started returning close. He returned closer against Hurkacz too. And, he came in, I think it wasn't all that much for the match, but he just came in a whole lot more in sets 3 and 4. And I think he was like, off the top of my head, I think he was somewhere around like 90% at the net, something crazy like that. But and he had some tremendous key volleys, and obviously that lucky drop shot return when he was 2 points away from losing. That doesn't happen if Medvedev doesn't deviate from his typical tactics of returning from the back fence. He came in closer, and he made that luck. So and a side note on, albeit Sinner has won those 3 in a row, but all of them have been very, very tight matches. So it is advantage Sinner, but I'm not as worried about the things with Medvedev's fuel tank and his his recent history against Sinner, as much as probably would be billed for why Sinner would be a hefty favorite in this final.
So in terms of tactics, it seems like Medvedev and Sinner, right? 6-3, is that correct? Head to head in the favor of Medvedev.
Correct.
And Sinner has taken the last 3. And what does Medvedev have to do to give Sinner any kind of trouble here?
Well, I think Daniil, like the last match they played, actually recognized that his typical the typical game plan against Sinner isn't really gonna cut it to nearly the same extent that it did, before Yannick puked. But it's with post puke Sinner and that from Beijing on, he sort of, whether it was utilizing the tactics that are usually the book against Medvedev, like he did in the Beijing final, coming in a lot more slicing, or in the Vienna final where he kind of just went away from that and beat Medvedev at his own game. I think in the Turin match, Medvedev definitely recognized that, and he kind of started ball bashing for him. And of course, in the end, it didn't, it wasn't sustainable, but I think Medvedev knows what he needs to do, sort of do what he's been doing all tournament pretty much, which is going away from plan A, because Sinner does seem like he has the legs now to just hang with Medvedev from the baseline without having to worry about being gassed out, which the biggest example of that, I think, was their Rotterdam and Miami matches earlier last year. In Vienna, he very much played Medvedev's game, and it was, it was brutal, but he ended up outlasting Daniil there. So that's a thing where, Medvedev will obviously have to go outside his comfort zone, keep at, some of the things he's been doing all tournament long with, try playing around at his return position. I guess he probably won't try it out of the gates, but at some point he'll probably have to go to, being the aggressor more than is typical for him.
Yeah. So, in terms of nerves and the fact that Daniil's been at this stage so many times, I wonder, we saw a little bit of nerve seep into Yannick in that third set against Novak. And I mean, of course he came back to win that fourth set, but truth be told, I mean, Novak handed that win to Yannick. I mean, look, Yannick has played well, full credit to you, but Novak lost that match. Novak played horrendous. That was a horrendous match from Novak.
And by his own admission too.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad match from Novak, but I mean, so many other players from the younger generations have played Novak at less than his best and haven't been able to have the mental cojones to pull through. So I mean, you still got to give Sinner credit mentally too, and not just physically for outlasting.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the occasion of that was going to be the biggest win of his career. This is an even bigger occasion for him. This is his first Grand Slam final. I don't know how. I mean, I'd love to know the percentage of individuals who win their first Grand Slam in their first final. If I were to guess, I'd say that's less than 50%, of course, and probably in the range of 30%, 30 to 40%. And so, I really think that the crowd's going to be an interesting factor as well. I mean, I really wonder who the crowd's going to back. Now seeing Medvedev in the final so many times, you'd like to think that the Australian crowd has grown to really, love Medvedev, and of course everyone's extremely excited about Sinner. Do you guys think the crowd's going to favor either of these two guys?
I tend to think they'd lean Sinner just because,
Same.
Sinner seems to, have quite the growing, and already huge following, as
a lot of boys.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, he's been I guess it's not really anymore. He's been the new kid on the block, but you know, people really seem to get to really I don't know, just love this very suaveness about Sinner, sort of in a Federer sort of way. So, I don't know. I think, yeah, I think Sinner he'll probably get at least like a majority of the crowd. But yeah, I mean, I do also, you know, piggybacking on you know, I think Medvedev will probably put the pressure on Sinner more than because I mean he very much had to play within himself against Djokovic, and Djokovic just didn't have it that day. Plus Sinner's ball being such a heavy one seemed I think Novak felt he had to do, you know, had to press a little bit. Felt like he had to
Definitely.
do a little bit more than he's comfortable, or yeah, he's comfortable. And as it is, his timing was so off on the day. So I mean, aside from the third set, he didn't really. So yeah, I mean, very very uncharacteristic Djokovic match where, you know, I guess the last game as well, but aside from that, you didn't see the typical questions being asked from Djokovic.
Even in that third set, though, I don't think he was really asking the question of Yannick. He wasn't making a dent on the serve. Yannick essentially let him back into that tiebreaker on multiple occasions, multiple times.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, you didn't expect Djokovic to. It was literally once in like, you know, God knows how many years type of performance from him. I don't you know, but you can't expect Medvedev to do. I'm sure Medvedev will make him play, ask those questions of him in his first final. And I think a little bit extra, you know, this is the first Grand Slam final that Daniil Medvedev's playing that he hasn't faced.
Doesn't have to play one of the big three.
Yeah, Nadal or Djokovic. It's the first of his, you know, the last 5 were against Nadal or Djokovic. That won't be the case. You know, I think in that situation, you know, you'd think Medvedev will kind of any type of nerve Sinner has. You would think he'd, you know, smell blood in the water in that case, because I definitely think Medvedev's gonna throw everything he's got. You know, who knows how much that's left, but I think he'll give everything he's got to, you know, get a second major under his belt, especially when he's not playing, you know, one of those tennis gods essentially. But yeah, on the Sinner side, this is what he's been doing all tournament, right? It doesn't feel like
his game.
He hasn't had the red line. Like this is literally his game now. He, you know, he hasn't had to play out of his mind. This is just the player he is now.
Yeah, this is his game for sure. Like he just hits the baseline bashing. He just more spin, more power than everybody, and you know, moves incredibly well. Corner to corner, up and down. It's
dominated a couple other Russian baseline bashers in this tournament in Kachanov and Rublev.
And Rublev, yeah, it's
Rublev. He was down 5-1 in that second set breaker, and you thought that was could be a long battle, and he was, you know, pointing to his stomach, and you didn't know what that was about. You later found out it was nothing, but you know,
you were probably thinking he might puke for the second time, right? You know, maybe.
Yeah, I thought so.
But I mean, if Yannick pukes again, oh my goodness, that is a scary prospect for the tour. I mean, if you're gonna take him a notch up from before that and then do it again, that'd be ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, look, go ahead, Akil.
I just want, I mean, like Sri Hari on Twitter, he tweeted, you know, early in this tournament that this tournament seems very Djokovic 08/11 coded for Sinner. And, you know, as we've gone further and further, the parallels with 08 continue, you know, taking out an all-time great. I think, yeah, ending a huge streak in the Djokovic, when he did it, Fed had made like, what was it, like 10 slam finals in a row. So
I believe so.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another parallel there. And yeah, either way, it's awesome on one hand because Medvedev's a very deserving multi-slam champion if he gets it done, and this would just be a legendary path to go through, or in the manner he went through in doing so. And then on the other end, you got, no one's gonna complain. Sinner's this is something that's been a long time coming, sort of. That this is already a breakthrough major for him, and he's be a very deserving major champion, and especially to do it in the way he's done it, so dominant. It's it's one that's very reminiscent to past all-time greats.
Yeah. So what's the call, boys?
I'm gonna say Yannick in 4. I think he continues his recent winning ways on Medvedev. I think I know Akil downplayed it, which is fair, but I think the stamina and the core time is gonna really start to be a factor in the late stages and in a fourth set. And because Medvedev is approaching Alcaraz's, as Akil's mentioned, all-time court record to win to get to a major final back in 2022 U.S. Open. He's approaching that record of, I want to say it was 17 hours or something. Yeah. So I'm gonna take Yannick on stamina, physicality, endurance, and the way. Yeah, I think you have to take Yannick in 4, based on those factors.
Akil?
Yeah, listen, everything that you think about with your head, it does point Sinner, but
your heart says you. Medvedev.
I say Medvedev in 5. I think that the marathon man will do it again. Mainly just really because of those two intangible things I've alluded to with first slam final. I anticipate there being some nerves there, plus it's uncharted territory for Sinner, and obviously eventually I'm sure I could be totally wrong, but at the very least eventually he will settle in. But also I think in a way that obviously, even though there's more mileage on the Medvedev odometer at the tournament, I think in a way that Nadal did and at the Aussie in 2009, I think Medvedev is going to throw everything he's got into this match. It's an opportunity that you'd think will come about again for Medvedev, but who knows, because even if he's there still competing at this level past Nadal and Djokovic's time, by that time you'll have a better Alcaraz, Sinner, Holger Rune. So a lot can change in that sense. It's a huge opportunity for him, and he ain't no chump change. He's been the second best hardcourt player in the world for the last 4 or 5 years. So I think he'll get one in Australia.
Yeah, all great thoughts and everything, but I think Sinner's going to get it done in straights. I really think
you gotta respect Medvedev a little more than that.
I think maybe a set, but I think the way Sinner's looking, I think he's going to come in dialed in. I think he's going to take it to Medvedev. I think Medvedev's going to show some wear and tear, and I think ultimately Yannick's going to get it done in tight straights.
Obviously, in a situation like this, for a guy who's running low on fuel, or you would assume so, the first set becomes all the more critical. So the answer to what way this match goes, whether it's more routine or whether we got a tussle on our hands, that probably lies in if Medvedev takes the first set or not. But probably, obviously, you've seen him rally 2 sets down twice in this tournament, but that's the last note I got.
And one more thing I want to add is that Yannick, in the Open era, Yannick has the record for fewest service games lost in hard court slams. He's only lost his serve twice heading into this final. That beats even Rafa's runs in 2010 and 2013, Roddick in 03, Sampras in 93, Fed AO 2018, and then Sampras in his swan song in 02. So I think that serve is also, a huge weapon for Yannick now. And I think as good as a returner as Medvedev is, and, adjustments that he's made, like Akil said about moving in and stuff, I do think the ability to get free points more easily for Yannick is crucial in a slam final when, sometimes, nerves can become a factor, as they were at the very end of that third set breaker. If you can get some free points, 1 or 2 per service game, then you don't have to really rely on tight margins or opponent unforced errors as much. So I think that's another key thing to mention for why I think Yannick will win.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note too, because Medvedev's serve has been pretty poor this tournament as well. A lot of uncharacteristic double. I mean, not uncharacteristic. When Medvedev's not serving great, he can be prone to some stretches of leaking doubles. Obviously, he doesn't typically let it get to him, but that is something to note.
True. Yep.
It's going to be an absolutely phenomenal final. Very much looking forward to it. You heard our calls here. I was indeed correct in my semifinal call, calling Sinner over Novak. Did not get sets right.
And one last thing to shout out. Rohan Bopana, 43 years young, 61st men's doubles slam appearance. And he finally breaks through with 36-year-old Matt Ebden winning the men's doubles. That was a nice match. Great tournament for him. Great for Indian tennis. So that was something to note.
Yeah, great tournament overall for Indian tennis. I mean,
yeah.
Sumit Nagal earlier in the tournament getting that scalp on Bublik.
Yes.
Obviously, we take on some
India's on the ups, man. India is indeed on the up. With that, this was another edition of the Racquet Rundown. Looking forward to a great final Sunday. Thanks for tuning in.